Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm really excited. We're going to talk about all of the Weatherby cartridges, and I'm going to rank all 16, including the brand new 338 Weatherby RPM that hasn't released yet. So I'm going to rank them from worst to best, and we're going to see which ones are duds and which ones are winners. So let's get into it. Now, before I start talking about number 16 and go on up, I want to give you kind of the grading scale that I have for these cartridges and why I put them in the order they are. So starting out, the first is, how does this Weatherby cartridge do versus the competition? Does it lead in velocity against the other calibers? How unique is it compared to the other calibers? So that is the big one that I'm going to be grading these on. The next one is, how modern is this cartridge? You know, it's no secret that today people like shooting high BC bullets. And a lot of the Weatherby cartridges were created over 50 years ago. And back then they came with, I don't know, 1 in 12 twists or higher. Nowadays, most of them are at least 1 in 10. But in certain calibers, that might not be fast enough. So we're going to look at that as part of grading it. And lastly, this one's not near as important to me, but still it has its place, is how popular is this round for the general public or even among the Weatherby fans. So let's get to number 16. At number 16, which I feel like is probably the least successful Weatherby cartridge ever made, is the 224 Weatherby Magnum. Now, versus the competition, it doesn't lead in velocity. It's roughly around the same as a 22-250 Remington, maybe even a little slower. Uniqueness, though, it does have a fun little belt to it. Not sure it's really needed. But as far as, well, being successful, it's not at all. So that's why I put it at the very bottom of my list. I believe at this moment, Weatherby doesn't even sell the 224 Weatherby Magnum in a rifle. They do sell the ammo, but you can't even get a new rifle in this cartridge. So with that being said, I had to put it last. At number 15, I think this is a really good cartridge, but again, I think it's a bit obscure and it gets overshadowed by the big 378 Weatherby, which shoots the same bullets, is the 375 Weatherby Magnum. Now, what the 375 Weatherby Magnum is basically a 300 Weatherby necked up to 375. You could really think of it as an improved 375 H&H, since that's what this case is based off of. So it's not as tapered as a 375 H&H, and I think it beats it by, let me double check here, a 270 grain bullet going 2,800 feet per second. So it beats it at least by 100 feet per second. And with the bigger bullet, the 300 grain, it beats it almost by 200 feet per second than the 375. So it does offer some darn good performance. But I don't think it's that popular. And again, it gets overshadowed by the big 378 Weatherby. At number 14, I know some of you are going to probably be frustrated that I put the 240 Weatherby so low, but I'll be honest, I'm not the biggest 6mm fan, but some things that are really nice about the 240 Weatherby, it does lead in velocity for its caliber, so it's definitely living up to the Weatherby name as being a very high velocity cartridge. But the reason I put this so low is really one thing, and that's versatility, and I guess you could say popularity as well. Oh, and one more thing, it's not really modernized. You know, it comes in a 1 in 10 twist barrel, which isn't bad, but you're going to be limited to basically a 100 grain bullet. You can't really shoot the really high BC bullets or stabilize them. But it does give you about a 200 feet per second advantage over the 243 Winchester. At number 13 is the newest Weatherby cartridge. It hasn't released yet, is the 338 Weatherby RPM. Now this cartridge is based off the 6.5 Weatherby RPM, and it's necked up to 338, and it gives about 338 Winchester Magnum performance. And so I kind of have it pretty low on the list because it's just not a very high velocity cartridge. And it's not that unique. The uniqueness is really that it's offered in under a 5-pound rifle. I'm not sure if that is a positive thing though. I hope the break really works well in this rifle. So yeah, it's pretty low on my list. At number 12 is the 416 Weatherby Magnum. This cartridge was introduced by Roy's son, Ed Weatherby, and at the time when it was introduced, it was the most powerful 416 caliber you could get. It shoots a 400 grain bullet at 2,700 feet per second. The only cartridge that really beats it in velocity is the 416 Barrett up to this point. 416 Barrett's not really a hunting cartridge, more of a long distance cartridge, while the 416 Weatherby is definitely not a long distance cartridge. But the reason I have it at 12, and being at 12, it's not that bad. It's definitely a really good cartridge. In fact, Adam Weatherby just posted on Facebook how he got a custom made Mark V rifle for 416 Weatherby because he's going to Africa to hunt with the 416 Weatherby. He's also taken a 6.5 300 Weatherby. So you could probably understand what maybe his favorite cartridges are to use in Africa. I put this at 12 just because it's right in between the 378 Weatherby and the Mammoth 460 Weatherby. So I personally, I don't know why you would pick a 416 when you can go with a 460. At number 11 is the 6.5 Weatherby RPM. This cartridge was introduced in 2019, so it's really new. What's unique about it is that it doesn't have the double radius shoulder and it's not belted. And why I didn't put it in the top 10 is because performance-wise, it's kind of in the middle of the road. It's definitely a good Magnum performance. And when you can get it in a sub 5-pound rifle, that's pretty darn awesome. It's definitely modernized, but there's so many 6.5 cartridges. It doesn't really do anything special other than what kind of rifle you can get it in. All right, we're to the top 10. At number 10, I have the 7mm Weatherby Magnum. I think this is a really underrated Weatherby cartridge. It's really efficient as well. I made a video back in February about how I think this is one of the most efficient 7mm Magnums. In fact, it has very similar dimensions to the 7mm Rem Mag, but is about 200 feet per second faster than a 7mm Rem Mag. You're getting a lot of performance out of this cartridge. So why is it maybe not a top 5 or a little higher? Well, it definitely isn't the fastest 7mm Magnum. It's kind of right in the middle. The 28 Nosler, the 7mm Rum, the 7 STW definitely outpace it. And the big thing for me is it's not really modernized. It comes in a 1 in 10 twist. And again, people are wanting to shoot high BC bullets, so you're going to be stuck to shooting like 160 grain or lower for the 7mm Weatherby. At number 9 is Ed Weatherby's favorite Weatherby cartridge, the 270 Weatherby Magnum. And this thing also is extremely underrated. Think of a 270 Winchester that's going about 300 feet per second faster. So it's using this exact same case that the 7mm Weatherby is using, and the 257 Weatherby, by the way, because Weatherby offers this in factory ammo going 3,400 feet per second, and the 270 does a 130 around 3,100. And so it is a really flat shooter, and in fact, it's one of the flattest cartridges in the world. What holds this cartridge back? Why isn't it higher? Again, it's not really modernized. I mean, specifically for this book, they're using a Mark V with a 1 in 12 twist rate. I think you can get them in 1 in 10, but with a 1 in 10, the highest I guess the heaviest bullet you're really going to be able to shoot is a 150 grain, a 160 grain partition, but that's not going to be a very high BC bullet. At number 8 is the 378 Weatherby Magnum. And boy, is this thing just a beast of a cartridge. So it's shooting the same diameter bullets that a 375 H&H shoot or a 375 Weatherby, but it's shooting with such a bigger case. And I want to show you the velocities. It's absolutely insane. It's shooting a 270 grain bullet over 3,100 feet per second. To put that into perspective, the 375 H&H, which is revered by so many hunters, is shooting a 270 grain bullet around 2,700 feet per second. So it has a 400 feet per second advantage over the 375 H&H. At number 7 is one of my personal favorites, is the 340 Weatherby Magnum. This one, I believe, is extremely overlooked. It's not extremely popular, hence why I didn't put it in my top 5. But it's basically a 300 Weatherby case. So this guy here, the 300 Weatherby case, necked up to 338. Roy Weatherby made it in response to the 338 Win Mag, and it's about 200 feet per second faster than a 338 Win Mag. It's shooting, well, let me go to the 225 grain bullets. It's shooting them at 3,000 feet per second. If you hand load it, some people are getting close to 3,100 feet per second. The 250 grain bullet is shooting over 2,900 feet per second. This matches the velocity of a 338 Lapua. So it's pretty incredible performance. Is it modernized? Absolutely. It comes with a 1 in 10 twist. You're going to be able to shoot any of the high BC bullets you desire. At number 6 is the king of 338s, at least in factory form. I know there's a lot of Wildcat 338s that can outperform this, but this thing is an absolute beast. It's the 338 Weatherby Magnum. And it outperforms the 338 Lapua probably about 100, maybe 200 feet per second faster than that. And let me just show you some of the performance. A 225 grain bullet at 3,200 feet per second. A 250 grain bullet over 3,000 feet per second. Yes, this thing is a heavy hitter. If you want the fastest 338 in a factory rifle, this is it. Okay, we are now to the top 5. And of course, at number 5, I have the 460 Weatherby Magnum. And like Hornady says, at its inception, the 460 Weatherby earned the title of the world's most powerful commercial cartridge. So it delivers over, or just under, 8,000 foot-pounds of energy at the muzzle. This thing is truly a heavy hitter. Let's just look at some of its performance. A 350 grain bullet going 3,000 feet per second. A 500 grain bullet going 2,550 feet per second. This thing can take anything in the world. At number 4 is the 6.5 300 Weatherby Magnum. Weatherby introduced this cartridge in 2016. And in fact, this is Weatherby's first 6.5 cartridge. And it just so happens to be the fastest 6.5 cartridge on the planet. Not only that, it is also the flattest shooting cartridge as well. The only downside to this cartridge is probably its really short barrel life, but it's a pretty incredible cartridge. At number 3, we have the 378 Weatherby Magnum. From the mid-40s all the way up to 1996, the beloved 300 Weatherby was the fastest factory 30 caliber cartridge you could get. Of course, Weatherby decided to one-up themselves, and they produced a very popular Wildcat cartridge that had been around for a while, and Ed Weatherby introduced it in this factory cartridge, the 378 Weatherby. So it's a 378 Weatherby case, neck down to 30 caliber. Here's the ginormous case, as you can see here, and it holds over 110 grains of powder. Some loadings have it at 120 grains of powder, depending on that powder. it is the fastest factory offered 30 caliber Magnum. So if you want the king of speed, this is it. It's also one of the flattest shooting cartridges in the world. At number 2 is the 257 Weatherby Magnum. This cartridge is just a really cool cartridge. In fact, it's Roy Weatherby's favorite cartridge. He took, it's based off the 300 H&H case, and it's shortened to fit a standard length action. And, it's the same case as the 270 and the 7mm, just necked down to 25 caliber. And it produces some blistering velocities. You could varmint hunt with this, definitely. And it's getting close to going 4,000 feet per second. A lot of people will hunt deer, antelope, even some people hunt elk with this cartridge. And even the 110 grain bullet is still going over 3,400 feet per second. It's just an awesome cartridge. Is it a logical cartridge? Not really. Is it the fastest one in its class? Yes, it is. In factory offering, it definitely is. And so I had to put it at number 2 because it's actually the second best selling Weatherby cartridge. So it's a wonderful cartridge. At number 1, of course, is the 300 Weatherby Magnum. This is by far the most popular Weatherby cartridge that Weatherby sells. And it's probably the most versatile cartridge that Weatherby sells. Let me show you the case real quick. So here's a 300 Weatherby. It has a Magnum length action, so it's a bit more powerful than a Win Mag. Almost matches the 300 Rum and is only about 200 feet per second slower than the 378 Weatherby Magnum. But it being a 30 caliber, it's going to be able to shoot a large selection of bullets at blistering speeds. A 110 grain bullet going 3,900 feet per second, the 130 going over 3,700 feet per second. I have a 300 Weatherby, and I've shot a 130 grain TTSX mid 3,700 feet per second. Pretty crazy. You have to get up over 210 grains before you get below 3,000 feet per second. That's how insane the performance is with this 300 Weatherby. And with a 1 in 10 twist, it can shoot up to these high BC bullets like this 220 grain ELDX, and it's still shooting a very good velocity of 2,900 feet per second. This cartridge produces over 4,200 foot-pounds of energy at the muzzle, and, well, there's a reason it's the most popular 300 Weatherby. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please let me know in the comments section whether you agree with how I rank them, where you would put the Weatherby cartridges yourself, and we'll see you next time.